Well, hi everybody. This is Steve, D9 Games. One of the most daunting things for a new game master, or it can be if you're not careful, is building a world. So I wanted to throw some thoughts out about that. Last night's game, by the way, was awesome. We ventured into the Elven lands, and we're of course playing in the Twilight of Fae, 300 BC London area. So the elves opened a Fey gate to take us into what we run is almost another dimension, being the Fey, but you can run it any way you want. If you're playing in the Twilight of Fey Enlightened system, the Fey could be just locations or it could be another dimension. I like to think of it as kind of you're stepping into another dimension, but it's in the same place. So the elves opened this gate and took us through. They needed our help, supposedly needed our help to clear out some undead in an old ruin. We ventured in. We met an elf, one of our players, and ventured into the Elven lands. One of our players acquired Necros, one of the 6 teeth of the dragon. And so the minute that the elves found out about this, of course, one of their warriors has Draconis and wanted to see if it was true. And of course, when these swords are in the same vicinity, they vibrate, they light up. One of them makes almost a black fire. So a lot of great things happen. And of course, the idea is maybe to get all 6 of these teeth of the dragon together and destroy evil in Albion or whatever. So sure enough, the swords lit up. Ulkron's Necros and the Elven warriors Draconis were more powerful side by side, and they said, let's go take care of some undead problems that we're having nearby. So the party went half cocked the first time, which was last week's session. We had 3 or 4 missing players. We went in, we absolutely got wiped out. Manasa-san, which is one of our fighters, practically one shot. Well, he got hit twice by 2 different undead and took him down to 1 HP. Ulkron had to jump in there and grab him by the back of the shirt and pull him out and finish the battle. But this week we had a full party. There was 8 PCs going into the same ruin, and we were able to make, I don't want to say light work, but we were able to do a much better job this time against the undead. So we're regrouping for a rest and going back in, but the thought is going throughout the party that maybe the elves want us to die so they can get their hands on this second Tooth of the Dragon, Necros. But we're not fully sure, and of course Ulkron has a good relationship with one of the elves, so he's putting faith first or trust forward. But sometimes when I'm getting ready for a campaign, and right now I'm being a player in our Tuesday night campaign, Jim Murphy's running as a game master. But of course, I take for granted sometimes that we're operating out of the Twilight of Fae. So I haven't had to build or world build as much. And prior to this, say 4 or 5 years ago, I was running out of D&D's campaign. Forgot the name of it, but whatever they run for their 4E and 5E. But we're running out of the Twilight of Fae, and sometimes I take it for granted as I'm building locations and dealing with things. I have a tremendous head start as to what races are going on, what type of weapons and what type of equipment is apropos for 300 BC. But for the new GM who doesn't have that, or maybe they don't want to run the Twilight of Fae or the Sword Coast or whatever, they want to create their own, I've got a few thoughts for you today. So it's definitely exciting to start from scratch, and to sit and build a whole world can be daunting, could be it could get burnt out pretty easy doing that. So what we always suggest is kind of flesh out, but not fully, just flesh out some themes and ideas of a home base. and you can definitely home base right in the middle of your quote-unquote world or map. You can home base on the edge. I would recommend not really fleshing out. I would lean toward the side of not fleshing out, but having some ideas, only because when you start your first session and you're working with your players, the players are going to be adding lib. They're going to be saying, hey, it's pretty cold. Let's go in the tavern and warm up and get a couple of stiff drinks or something. And so that hints to you that your world might be a little further toward the north or toward the cold or inland. But if they say, man, we're just like sweaty, tired, it's hot, we're out in the sun, we'll get some cold drinks in the tavern, well, then maybe your world or home base might be further south or in more of a desert area or whatever the case may be. So when you're fleshing out your starting location, home base, have some bullet points, have some ideas, maybe a couple of races nearby or some different kind of creatures nearby. If you're starting low level, you can, have your foes chalked up at a lower level. If you're starting mid to higher level, then you have to mix it up a little bit or just put in more numbers. But anyway, so adapt to the players' ideas and comments and questions. When you're at the table and they say, hey, so what's happening on the outskirts of town and this and that, sometimes I'll ask my players, and it shocks them maybe because they're coming out of a different game system, but I'll say, you tell me what's in the north. And they'll say, well, there's rumors of a swampland, and there's like an evil dragon or hag or something. And then you run with that. So it's the GM's a player too, so you want everybody to be involved in creating your world. If you want to, you can create your own world and verbatim everything yourself, but that's up to you. But why? It's more fun. It's more fun as a game master not to really know what's going on. So that's kind of the main reason there. Build as you go. When you're planning your next session, I always suggest to plan one session at a time. Plan that night's session, whether it be you might want to create a couple encounters or a couple of scenarios or whatever the case may be. Or I really like to usually do one scenario. And then based on the results or the outcome of the scenario, I can run with it and look at my bullet points on my side notes as to what's in the area. But it's nice to kind of know approximately what's out there. Like, I've got another video where I talk about what's in the north, what's in the south, what's in the east, what's in the west, and then you can kind of play on that. There might be some goblin tribes one direction, some orc activity another direction, giants or trolls, etc. So you have your simple, basic ideas of your home base, and encourage your players to add value to the world and add ideas and things like that. But be flexible. So flexibility is the key. It's more fun, it's easier to prep, and it gives your players some equity in the game, in the campaign. So a couple examples. Let's say your group's in a tavern, and like I said earlier, they're having a cold one because it's hot out there. So you kind of know, well, maybe my world is in the desert somewhere, or maybe in a lower latitude place. A group of goblins bust into the tavern, and they're sweaty and stinky, and they're all, they're trying to steal drinks and, hey, give us a drink. And then you kind of make it to where your home base might be in a more warm area. Opposite there is hey, let's keep warm by the fire here in the tavern. And then, so that tells you that it's a cold area. So maybe a group of Celts come into the tavern, and they're all bundled up and shaking and looking for something warm to eat or some soup or something hot to drink. And then that kind of gives you the vibe that you're dealing in a more cold area, or maybe a cold time of year. Four Seasons is fun. We do Four Seasons in our Tuesday night campaign, where right now we're in the summer. So a lot of the themes are based around whatever the summer's like in the London, England area, and then on into Ireland, or Ireland, we call it. So stay flexible, plan one session at a time, encourage your players to add value to your world, kind of bank on that. And I'll tell you, session 2 is incredibly easy, and a lot of fun to build because you've got all those ideas from session 1. So I think maybe if you have to take anything away from this little video, is just get out there and run your first session. Even if it's short, if you run out of ideas, say, hey, that's all I got for tonight. Let's wrap it up. Let's play a cool down game. And then you've got tons of material to set up for your second session. So that's it. We had a great session Tuesday night. I got some of this little fey terrain here, and we're ready to have fun next Tuesday. Until next time, everybody. Peace.